Right, hello everybody. Welcome to SBC TV. Delighted to be joined tonight by former Forest player Paul Anderson. Paul played over 130 games for Forest, scoring 11 goals in that time in all competitions. And I think it's safe to say was at Forest for probably two of the best seasons in our recent history. So it'd be nice to look back on those tonight. Paul, good evening. Welcome to SBC TV.
Thank you very much. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. You?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good, excellent. Okay, well, let's make a start then, Paul. So, how did you get into football? I guess that's the reasonable place to start.
I think it's quite a standard thing, isn't it? As a child, most lads just end up, well, everyone now, lads, ladies, girls, boys, everyone loves just playing football. I think it's the number one sport in the world for participation, that is. And yeah, I was just straight onto a football from as soon as I was walking, really. And you join your local Sunday league team and you progress, you work your way through. And unfortunately, I got spotted along the way as I was slowly getting into my teens and things like that. And with obviously the support from my family, so my mum and my dad, they managed to sort of help guide me through all the Sunday league football, and fortunately I ended up signing youth team contracts and pro contracts. So that was
you do tend to rely on your parents a lot, don't you, when you're young, for fetching and carrying and driving you around it?
I think for myself now, I've got two little ones, and look, they're too young at the minute to be worrying about after school activities and things like that. But when I look back on it now, and I would never be here or would never have had the career I've had if it wasn't for my parents, especially my dad. My dad did a hell of a lot of travelling, supported me so much through Sunday League all the way through to sort of Centre of Excellences, academies and things like that. He travelled everywhere for me, and then since I've been a pro, he's pretty much, I reckon he's been to 90% of games home and away for every team I've been at. So yeah, I have to take my hat off to him for it as well.
And your dad played as well, Paul, didn't he? Was he professional as well?
He didn't quite make professional. He did some schoolboy stuff with Hull City. Again, his generation, I think the setup was slightly different. There wasn't necessarily academies around in those times, but he played for like East Yorkshire, so the counties and things like that, and he did a few things with Hull City, but I think he had a bit of a knee injury when he was around the 15-16 mark, and you know what it was like. We're talking, well, what's he now? We're talking 35 years ago, more than that. So there just wasn't the medical care and the upkeep of players' fitness and the surgeries and things that there are now. So I think as soon as that happens to you as a young lad, I think that sort of faded out any opportunity that he would have had going into the pro game.
And you yourself, you had your connections to Hull City as well at the start, didn't you? Was it released by Leicester and then snapped up by Hull before obviously being spotted for Liverpool?
Yeah, I was at Leicester as a very young boy, and never.
That was a lucky escape.
It's one of those that I've had so much stick over the years, obviously having 4 great years at Forest, and I'm from Melton Mowbray, which is Leicestershire, but growing up I was a Hull City fan, so yeah. Leicester, like, I used to get so much abuse from Leicester fans, and then obviously when I then signed for Forest, that was the start worse. Yeah, that was the start of the end for me back in Melton Mowbray. But yeah, it was it is what it is. So yeah, so they weren't interested in me at whatever age, and then it was West Brom that I got released from at under 16s.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So West Brom was where I released, and I think the one bit of luck I've probably had in my career was my uncle worked for Hull City as the referee advisor, or I'm not 100% on the role, but where they look after the referees, and make sure everything's set for them and their changing rooms and they're all set, and the food and the teas and everything. They know where the stadium is, or their way around the stadium. So he was there, and he just so happened to speak to Neil Mann, who was an ex-player at Hull, and he was the youth team coach, not the main coach, but like the coach. And he had just asked how I was getting on. He knew that I played, and he said, "Well, funnily enough, tonight he's finding out whether he's going to get his youth team contract." And Neil Mann said, "Well, can I have his number to give him a call tonight to just say well done?" Because I was half expecting to get a contract at West Brom.
Yeah.
And when he rang, it was literally 15 minutes after I'd been released. And I think it was a little bit of a shock of, oh, well, he was expecting me to have a contract. So I was expecting to say a congratulations. And then it then happened that I think he had to back his way out of it a little bit. And he sort of said, well, it's half term next week, so if you want to come up and train, you can.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I think that was the one bit of luck I've probably had throughout my career, in all honesty.
Yeah. And then, and was that the time that you then got spotted by Liverpool then?
Yeah. So I did I went on trial at Hull, and I did really well in my trials. And they offered me my youth team contract. It was a YTS scheme, so youth team scholarship. I think it's slightly different now, but it's similar. And yeah, so I signed that, and I played really well in some of the FA Youth Cup games. And I think we got to the 3rd or 4th round, which was really good for us because Hull was League One at the time.
Yeah.
We'd done pretty well, and in the Youth Cup, there's scouts. Even now, you get scouts going to all these games because you never know, you might find a bit of a gem from the lower leagues. And fortunately for me, I'd obviously played 2 or 3 games at really sort of well. I played really well, and I scored a screamer in one of the games where one of the Liverpool scouts was there, and then from there it was a conversation between Liverpool and Hull trying to get me out of Hull, and it was a tough one for me because I'm a Hull fan.
Yeah.
So,
but I guess the lure of Liverpool at the time must have been far greater.
It was really tough for me because I hadn't been offered a pro contract or anything at that point. I was still on a youth team contract, and Peter Taylor was manager of Hull, and they were offering me, like, for a 17-year-old, offering me very good money.
Yeah.
And like you say, I'm a Hull fan, and all I'd ever dreamed of over the years was to play in the first team for Hull City.
Yeah.
And, I was getting given that opportunity by a manager in a club, and it was a real head over heart decision because Liverpool just won the Champions League that summer, or previous to the summer.
Yeah.
So they're the champions of Europe, and as a 17-year-old lad, it's like, well, you can't really turn it down, even though in the back of my head I wanted to, because I was desperate to play for my boyhood club. But you have to look at it for a career point of view rather than from an emotional point of view.
Yeah, and football's probably tough like that, isn't it? It's not like any other industry, is it? It's where you've got this allegiance to a club, and no matter how big the club comes along that wants to take you away, how can you? It's like me living the dream, working at Forest. How do you? If Man United, not Man United are going to come in, but if they do, it's like, well, I'm doing what I really want to. I'm at the club that I really want to be at. So I get that.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, but like we say with football, I think footballers get a hell of a lot of stick for that. Money gets thrown about all the time. Oh, he's just gone there for the money, or he's gone here for the money. Well, actually, if we look at an instance right now, and I know there's a hell of a lot of money involved, but Ozil, for example, he's gone to play for the team that he supports, and I'm sure he's earning nowhere near the money he could have got elsewhere.
And
I know I'm talking on extreme level.
We're talking, but
but there are these people who their dream is to play for the team that they support. And again, there's lads who probably have come up through the ranks. I'm sure there's lads who have come through Forest at certain times, who are big Forest fans. And let's say when Forest were in League One, sort of the year before I signed, you've probably got a couple of lads there who were good players who have the ability to play higher. And you do have to take that emotion out of it, and it becomes right. What is right for your career? Right, what is the right path? And it's such a short career. And unfortunately, we all go to work to earn money. And you do have to take that into consideration as well.
Absolutely, it's like you just said there. It's a career decision, and it's head over heart, isn't it? So you make the move. You end up at Liverpool. Am I right in thinking that you didn't make a first team appearance other than pre-season friendly?
Yeah, so I played.
Sorry, I'm going on a bit too quick there. You've won the Youth Cup, didn't you?
Yeah. So, well, that was all sort of in a similar time. So I played really well in the Youth Cup again. I don't know what it was with the Youth Cup. I just seemed to perform really well on those evenings. And yeah, we went on to win the Youth Cup, which was strange because Liverpool that year, we'd signed quite a lot of foreign lads and the best young English players from the lower leagues. We actually had a very good team where you sort of had some of the Scouse lads that were already there. So you Adam Hamill, Stephen Darby, who else was there? Jay Spearing.
Yeah.
There was a lad called Robbie Frelfall. So that Craig Linfield. So they were all young lads who would come through from the Liverpool setup that were all like Scouse lads. So you had the best of that area, and then you were then bringing the best of from around the world, really.
Yeah.
So we had an amazing team, but it was difficult because we'd signed pro contracts, the foreign lads and the other lads from around England. We were training at Melwood, which is now gone, but we were training at Melwood in and around the first team, and then they had like a development squad.
Yeah.
But a lot of the other lads were still training at Liverpool's academy. So actually, when we went in to go and play together, we didn't actually know each other very well, which is strange.
Yeah, very strange. Yeah.
Normally, the youth team is your youth team, and you're all
in it together and developing together. Yeah.
So it's quite strange because there was a little bit of tension there because you've got a full youth team of lads that actually are working day in, day out. And then you've got a handful of players that are coming down from above them to just take their spot because I didn't really play youth team. I only really played in reserve games.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit strange, but it didn't ever feel like they were sort of annoyed about it or anything like that. They were pretty welcoming, to be fair. So, but yeah, we went on and won the Youth Cup, which was amazing. And in and around that time, that season, I was on the bench in the Champions League, which was amazing.
Was that against Benfica?
Benfica, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the last 16 or something at Anfield.
Yeah.
So you think prior to that, a year and a half before that, I was getting released by West Brom.
Yeah. Incredible transformation.
And then an experience to be on the bench in a massive tie, considering that we were champions of Europe, and we just so happened we lost that game and were knocked out of the Champions League, unfortunately.
And the players playing that night for Liverpool, then the likes of Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, they were all they were there. I was disappointed because even though I didn't even expect to be anywhere near the squad, it was a massive surprise to me when I was included. I was on the bench with, I think, Jibril Cisse. Can't remember whether Luis Garcia had played or if he was on the bench. I think even Peter Crouch might have been on the bench.
Yeah.
So like big names on the bench. And then I just sat there thinking, surely I'm going to come on.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, from being on the bench, you just want to play.
Yeah. So, but again, look, we were losing at the time. You're not going to throw on a 17-year-old lad, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was that, and then end of that season, that all came to fruition, and then pre-season the following year, I went on tour with the first team, played in a few pre-season friendlies, scored on my pre-season debut actually.
Yeah.
It was an amazing feeling because
Excellent.
I still see the video on YouTube every now and again, and there's the first person to celebrate with me is Zenden.
Yeah.
Polo, and you think,
Yeah.
some of the players I've been fortunate enough to share a pitch with, it's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, brilliant. So just before we move on from that, who would you say, and I'm talking about your whole career now, who would you say is the best player that you have played with during your career?
Oh, it's hard. See, when I got asked this question early in my career, I always used to try and be like, oh, it's got to be Gerrard, it's got to be whoever, just because you want to throw those names out.
Yeah.
And if I was able to say that, I would say it would be between Gerrard and Alonso, because Xabi Alonso, one of the best, most technically gifted players I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, watch him in training is frightening.
Yeah.
To see what Gerrard does and how hard he works or worked, and how he could just control a game was amazing.
Yeah.
So I'd definitely say it's one of those two, but then it's difficult. So I didn't really play with them. I think I played with both of them for a maximum of 5 minutes in one of the pre-season games or something.
Yeah.
So technically it would be them. But if you start looking at things, I've probably been very fortunate. Obviously, my time at Forest, I got to play with Andy Cole when he came.
Yeah.
Andrew Cole.
Andrew, yeah.
I know that was at the back end of his career and whatever else, but if you actually, his finishing and things like that were phenomenal. Like how he was in training, between him and Robbie Fowler for shooting and stuff. Like, for me to even just be throwing out these names is a real privilege for me to say that I've even been anywhere near these guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely excellent. So I'm conscious that time's moving very, very quickly. We've not even mentioned Forest yet, but I think it'd be wrong not to touch on. So Liverpool, you then go out on loan and have a really, really successful season under Roberto Martinez at Swansea, which culminates in promotion.
Yeah, and again, that was a really frustrating year for me, because I came to Forest, so we played Forest at the City Ground. Can't remember when it was, but it must have been November time, something like that. But we couldn't get to the ground for traffic. So we were top.
Welcome to Nottingham. Yeah.
We were top of the league, Swansea at the time, and Forest must have been there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And so it must have been like a massive game for the league. So obviously, and then we got delayed, and the referee wouldn't delay the game, and we literally got a 10-minute. We got a 10-minute warm up or something like that.
Really.
And in the first 10 minutes, I tore my thigh. So that meant I missed nearly 3 months of my season. And look, it may have happened anyway, but with me being a quick player and needing that extra bit of warm up.
Yeah, and there's a reason players spend that time warming up, isn't there? You know, it's not. I was sort of laughing there. I'm sort of hoping that Forest won the game, but didn't realise you were going to say you actually got injured in that game.
I think we drew. I think we drew both games that season, actually. But yeah, it was one of those, and look, that way it was the frustrating bit, because Forest was the one, obviously Swansea being miles away from Melton Mowbray, that's where all my family live. Forest is the one that I was thinking, do you know what? I must have bought God knows how many tickets for people to sit in the Swansea end.
And
after 10 minutes, and it was obviously a devastating thing for me, because I wanted to be able to perform, especially my mum. My mum didn't get the opportunity to go to that many games. And it was real disappointment from that point of view. Like, that was my first memory of playing Forest.
Closest away game in your last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating. But for the rest of the season, I had an amazing season that year, I think I scored 10 goals. We obviously won the league, and we won it by a long way. I know that was the year that Leeds had got the points deduction. But we had it at a point because we needed to beat Brighton the last game of the season. And if we beat Brighton, we'd have guaranteed that we'd have finished above Leeds regardless of their point deduction.
Excellent.
So we were playing it as, right, well, we've got to win this game so that there would never have been any doubts that we wouldn't have been champions, because Leeds would have always said, oh, well, we would have been champions if it wasn't for the point deduction. So that was a real nice thing. And for me, it was the first taste of professional football. I know I'd been at Liverpool, but it was my first taste of professional football, and to know I could do it at that level was nice for me.
Yeah, and in that summer, at the end of that season, obviously you've gone back to Liverpool, but then there's a chance of going back to Swansea. But then Roberto Martinez left, didn't he? And opened the door for Forest to nip in. Is that what happened?
Martinez was still there that year, so Martinez stayed there that season. And Martinez was, from what I know, was desperate to sign me.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, and I think I've been honest about this in the past, I was desperate to go back to Swansea because they played amazing football at the time. We won the league by a mile. And my two options were Swansea and Forest. And I was saying, why, and this is no disrespect to Forest now, but I was saying, why would I go to Forest when we won the league by an absolute mile? I know we play the style of football that suits me, and Martin got some really good stuff out of me, and I wanted to work with him again. He's gone on to manage World Cup.
And you've already got the relationship with the fans from that perspective as well.
Exactly. So from my point of view, to begin with, I was wanting to go back to Swansea, but for some reason, and I don't know whether this was to do with my agent at the time or anything, he was saying Swansea weren't prepared, because this was the year that Liverpool were asking for a loan fee, and he was saying that Swansea weren't prepared to meet the loan fee, which I was on the phone to Martinez, and he was saying that they're trying to get it sorted their end. He doesn't see why there's a problem. So I was getting told two different things. I was getting told one thing from my agent and one thing from Martinez. So I was saying that, and I just said to Martinez, I said, look, you've got 48 hours, because to be fair to Colin Calderwood, he was so supportive all the way through it. And he was like, look, we really want you here. Come in and see us, this, that, and the other. So I went and met Calderwood to just see what the whole setup was like. And by no means was it, oh, Swansea are here and Forest are here. It was literally like, what is the best thing for me? And it was just the style of play that Swansea had that we felt would have suited me going back to Liverpool, which would progress my career better at that time, because in the back of my head, it didn't matter whether I was at Swansea, Forest, Luton, or Grimsby, whoever. It was whatever was the best stage for me to progress and go and play for Liverpool. And I felt at the time that Swansea would have been the right thing under Martinez. Martinez was the sell. It had nothing to do with the clubs. It was Martinez who was the sell.
Yeah, you can understand that. Like you say, he's gone on. I mean, the job he did at Swansea enabled him to go on to do what he's done at other clubs. So, fully understand why that would be the case. But it was Forest, and that first season back up in the Championship, 08-09 was quite a tough one, wasn't it? So Colin started the season and we didn't start it well.
Yeah, it was tough, and again, that was a frustrating season for me, because so happens, ironically, the thigh that I tore
at City
Ground in pre-season, I retore. So I missed the first 2.5 months of the season because of it, and it was really frustrating for me because I was questioning, because I was really struggling with getting it back, and every time I kept coming back, I kept sort of tearing it. There was a question of I didn't know how I was gonna move on with it, to be honest. So yeah, but I had some amazing help along the way with some physios, and some guys at Loughborough University were brilliant with me and how they helped me get back into it. So yeah, it was a tough start, and it was frustrating because I was a young lad again, and all I wanted to do was play football, play first team football, championship football at a massive club, and I'm local to home, so I could have had as many people as I wanted come into all the games. So it was frustrating for me that I couldn't play at the start. But again, we sorry,
that's right.
We were trying to. Well, I got back into the team when I got back fit, and I think Colin Coldwood put a lot of faith in me. I played quite a lot of games, and for whatever reason, it just didn't quite go right, did it? And he got sacked on
Boxing Day, wasn't it?
He got sacked on Boxing Day.
Yeah, after the defeat to, I think, Doncaster, I think, and then of course Billy comes in, and I know Forest fans have a love-hate relationship with Billy. I know that certainly that first spell and those 2 seasons that we'll talk about in a few minutes. He came in. It was a bit of a whirlwind, wasn't it? I mean, let's talk about the Man City game when he was sat on the stand for a start. I was in the away end that day, and it was a special afternoon, wasn't it?
It was amazing. I was actually talking about it the other day because obviously Cheltenham played Man City.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine plays for Cheltenham now. So we were bringing up all the old things, and we were putting out I was sending screenshots over of the teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they were like amazing experiences for me. And John Pemberton was the guy who took over actually.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him not long ago as well. But that I think that was a clever thing for Billy, because Billy thought, well, we're not going to beat Man City.
We're going to get smashed.
So I'm not going to sit in as the manager that day. But yeah, it so happens that was an amazing day. And then I think we beat Norwich as well under Pembo, which must have been before Man City.
Yeah.
Because Billy wouldn't have obviously.
Yeah, there will have been a game between Boxing Day and the Cups.
Yeah. So I think we beat Norwich. So actually Pembo did an amazing job.
Yeah, 2 out of 2.
And then obviously Billy came in, and look, you couldn't have further from chalk and cheese with Billy and Colin.
And Colin, yeah.
But again, from my point of view, 2 brilliant guys. I've got a great relationship with Colin. Still speak to him occasionally. I bumped into him last season.
Yeah.
We always say hello when we see each other. And Billy, I haven't spoke to him since, but I worked last season. I worked with Ned Kelly, who was his assistant. He was at Northampton with me, and I spoke to Billy through Ned. And look, I know that some people, he's a bit Marmite, isn't he? Some people love him, some people hate him. I've got to be one of his biggest fans, in all honesty.
And absolutely, what you can't argue with is the record. I mean, to that first season to not turn it around, because I think we ended up finishing 19th, but to survive that season, I remember scoring a couple against QPR at the City Ground and in a vital game towards the end of the season. But then those 2 following. Let's talk about those 2 seasons that followed. And particularly the first season, where Forest fans still talk to me about that game at West Brom in January when Raddy was smashing it in from wherever, and you go to West Brom, you win 3-1, and I think we all felt that was been a bit of a season, didn't we?
Yeah, and look, I think us as players, which was a strange thing. I'm not normally a player who wants people to come in January, because I want to play and things like that. But that was the season where I think we were 1 or 2 players short. because West Brom and Newcastle had such strong squads. It was one of those that because we were top of the league going into January. So when we beat West Brom, I think we were top of the league going into January, or it was around then anyway.
Yeah,
we were top of the league, and there's always that question. And hindsight's amazing. There was that question of, is the squad strong enough to go to the end of the season and stay there, or do we need one or two additions? But then we don't want to upset the camp. So again, and I'm sure Billy would have been pushing to try and get other people in, but I think he was probably also very happy with the squad that we had, because we had an amazing squad. There were games that we controlled so much that it was pretty much pick and choose when we wanted to score.
Yeah.
I've not been in many teams like that. My year at Swansea was a bit like that, but then that year, and to do it at the Championship when you're playing big clubs every week.
Yeah. Well, we know how difficult the Championship is.
Yeah. And we were strong, and we were strong considering we probably weren't one of the big hitters really from a financial point of view. I know that year we had spent good money because we brought in myself, but I wasn't ridiculous amounts of money, but Chris Gunter, who was good amount of money. Did we bring in Dexter that year? Was Earnshaw brought in?
Yeah.
I think we might have even signed McGoldrick that year.
Yeah.
So, and then we signed McKenna.
Paul McKenna. Yeah. I was just looking at some of the stats as well. I you sort of, we're talking 10, 11 years ago, but 12 straight home league wins, which is still a club record that season. 19 games unbeaten and 13 away games unbeaten, which is, I mean, it was like, I remember at the time, because I was just a season ticket holder in the Trent End, just a season ticket holder, I was obviously a big fan, and you remember coming to the City ground and just expecting 3 points. It's brilliant.
We did as players, and Billy instilled that. Like, if you actually look at the squad, yes, we were talented, but you look at what we did, not one player would have ever let that team down.
Yeah.
Like, no one, look, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
But if one person made a mistake, we all got them out of it. It's not like if we'd have conceded a goal, it was like, oh God. It wasn't ever like that. If we conceded a goal, we were so relaxed with it because Billy was so good with it, and we were so well drilled. His attention to detail away from the football pitch was second to none. And he's definitely one of the best I've worked with for that, to make sure we were well prepared for the opposition. We knew everything about the other team, individuals. I think that's where he really worked. And then obviously we know that he can throw his toys out of the pram a little bit.
So how tough is it to, we've all lost football matches, we've all lost games of whatever it may be, but how tough is it to lose in the playoff semi-final when you are as good as we were that season, but you come up against Blackpool, who they'd already done the double over us in the league, and then you come up against them, you go 1-0 up early on up at Bloomfield Road, lose that one, but then you still must be a belief in the City ground that we're gonna win that game.
Yeah, look, the playoffs are a lottery. I genuinely believe we were one of the best teams in the league that year, if not the best. Newcastle were good. Newcastle were very good. I didn't believe West Brom were that good, but they had some very good players. But again, you see these teams on the day that you play against them.
Yeah.
But I think we were the three best teams by a long run.
Yeah.
And realistically, it is one of those that it's a massive opportunity missed. And the hardest thing for me, and look, it might make out that it sounds like I'm saying it for the sake of saying it because I'm on a Zoom call talking about Forest, but if there's one club that are outside the Premier League that I genuinely think deserve to be back there, it's Nottingham Forest. You look at the history, you look at the way the club is, you look at the way they're trying to move forward now. It, it and at the time, Nigel Dougherty was the owner, and there would have been nothing nicer for me than to be able to shake his hand and say, thank you for giving me the opportunity to play for this amazing club, but also you're the one person who deserves this more than anybody.
Yeah, and to have been able to have played a role in that.
Yeah,
when shaking his hand.
Yeah, and it would have been so nice, and it's still those 2 seasons, because even the season after, those were the 2 seasons that I think was a massive opportunity missed. One, from a selfish point of view, for me to get the opportunity to play in the Premier League, which we all dream of as kids, but 2, for a club who deserve to be there, they genuinely deserve to be there, because it is a club of England. People from all around the world know the club. And look, I'm not one for sitting and holding on to history, because I think you have to create your own history.
Absolutely.
You have to move forward, and you have to think about the future, because there's nothing we can do. But there's a reason why Nottingham Forest is an amazing football club with great history, with some of the best players and managers, with Brian Clough and things like that, who it will always be in the history books.
Yeah.
And it would have been really nice to have my name alongside some of those guys that were a part of when Forest were right at the top.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough when you look back at, we're talking about. I'm quite enjoying reminiscing about these 2 seasons, because it was such a good time to be a fan. But ultimately it led to the playoff heartbreak, and the following season as well, which we need to touch on as well, which obviously was Swansea and the sending off early on. Did you play in that game? Did you play in?
Played in the first game.
In the first game, and then
played in the first game, because again, when we talk about opportunities missed, I actually think we battered them the first leg, and especially with Taylor, wasn't it, who got sent off early?
Yeah.
How we didn't score or win that game, I don't know. And sometimes the football gods are against you. And that day, Swansea probably would have felt it was them having their player sent off.
Yeah.
But how we didn't go on and win it, I don't know. And then obviously the second leg was the second leg. And I look back at the second leg, because I think we were 2-0 down. And then Earnshaw scored late. Yeah. And then Earnshaw hit the post not long after we'd scored, which at that point we would have probably gone on to win the game.
Yeah, we
were pressing, and he hit the post, and they broke.
McGoldrick had a chance. I think McGoldrick having a chance, maybe hit the bar.
Yeah, we had a couple where it was like, oh my god, and then we were trying to score, and it must have been Campy in goal.
Yeah,
he must have been, and then Pratley scored
corner.
Which obviously was the end, but it would have been the end anyway. But again, it's one of those that it's so tough. All the teams that are sat in that top 6 are there for a reason. Blackpool were there for a reason. They had some good players. They did relatively well in the Premier League when they went up with next to no budget.
Yeah,
they were probably getting treated like, well, not very nice by the owner at the time.
Well, players like Charlie Adam, the absolute quality, and the guy who Stephen Dobbie, who used to seem to score against.
He was amazing that year.
Yeah. And then of course, sorry, mate, go on.
Go on, you go.
I was just going to say, and then of course, so it's playoff heartbreak, second season running, and then Billy leaves. When did you find out about that? How did you know that was?
I can't really remember now. I can't remember exactly what had happened, and this is the thing that fans will never understand, and probably players don't understand. Is there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and I have no idea what conversations were going on between Nigel and Billy Davis. I have no idea, but there seemed to obviously be something that one of them, if not both of them, weren't happy with. because why, when look, Billy got backed big time in that first playoff season, because I think we spent about 10 million quid, which was a lot of money then, but I'm not sure how much he got backed the following year. So I can't remember now, but I don't think we signed that many players.
No, and I seem to remember we were better that first season of those two.
Oh yeah, by far
third, as opposed to finishing sixth in that season after, and obviously playing Swansea, who'd finished third. So there was a difference.
Yeah, there was a difference, and I don't think Billy got backed in that second year, but Billy had spent big in the first year.
Yeah.
So I'm on both of their sides with it. And then going into that summer, I have no idea what went on. To this day, I have no idea, because I was surprised he went, in all honesty, because we'd had 2 amazing seasons.
Yeah.
Albeit ended up in defeat and
not
what we wanted.
What the fans and what the club would give for a playoff season now, you know, and at that time, with a manager as good as Billy was and what he was doing, it almost seemed normal, at least playoffs, didn't it?
Yeah, and look, again, we never know what's going on behind the scenes. Players don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and something obviously was said, or both parties obviously weren't happy with whatever was going on with the club. Billy must have had a bee in his bonnet, and at the end of the day, Nigel was the guy who owned the club and was Billy's employer.
Make those decisions, absolutely.
And he makes those decisions. And if you actually look at it, Billy went, and then Steve McClaren came in. And if you actually look at it and you go, well, hang on, you can't say anything about Nigel not being ambitious.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't long. That wasn't long after he was England manager and done well out in Holland.
Yeah.
So if you actually look at it, and again, hindsight's amazing, but you look at that, there was probably a buzz around the club, because he'd come in, we'd signed, because Billy hadn't. This is probably what annoyed Billy, is he probably wasn't given massive amounts of money from a wages point of view, but then McClaren comes in and you sign George Boateng, Jonathan Greening, Ishmael Miller, Matt Derbyshire signed.
Matt Derbyshire, yeah.
So you've signed these players, and they're probably on very good money.
Yeah.
And that's probably where, if you're looking back at it now, that's probably where Billy was not happy, and then he brought someone else in and backed him.
Completely. Yeah. That didn't work though, did it?
Again, it's hindsight, isn't it? It didn't work, and again, I don't know what happened between Steve McClaren and Nigel at the time. I have no idea what happened. And then he left, I think. I don't know.
I think he resigned after 9 or 10 games, I believe.
Yeah, it wasn't long. Long. So he left, and then we ended up with Steve Cottrell, and then not long after him, O'Driscoll came in to be his assistant. Sean O'Driscoll came in to be his assistant, or how that combination was ever going to work, I don't know. And then obviously the sad passing of Nigel Doughty then, and
that was a pretty tragic afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't nice for the full club, and for his family were very supportive of the football club, his wife and his kids and things, and it was not a nice time. And you definitely know after that to keep. I actually take quite a lot of pride actually keeping the club in the league that year, because there'd been so much change and so much had gone on, and obviously with all that sad news, it does filter down to on the pitch. And there was so much uncertainty of what was going to happen with the club in general after his passing, it was a little bit of like, well, what's happening? A
What
lot of
happens
us
now?
were out of
Yeah,
contract that year.
yeah,
And it was a bit like, well, where do we sit?
yeah,
From a selfish point of view, like you've got no idea where your next contract was going to come
yeah.
from at that point.
Absolutely. And was that your that was your final season?
That was my final season, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah. Sad way for it to end. So what was your, so we'll stay on Forest. I know you've I do just want to ask you a couple of questions about football now, without supporters, because I know you had the pleasure of coming on at Wembley in the playoff final last year. But before we do that, if we could just finish on Forest and your best memory of your time over those 4 seasons. Yeah, I didn't promise you a difficult question to finish on, did I?
No, I'm going to have to say it. Scoring against Leicester in the 5-1 at home.
Yeah, yeah. That was
like, there was nothing better, because I knew there was a hell of a lot of people from Melton Mowbray sat in that away end, and I scored in front of them. And the worst part about it was, in the first half, I broke through, and Jack Hobbs, who played for Forest, afterwards, he's my best mate through football.
I was going to say, he's one of life's nice guys as well, Jack.
Yeah, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet.
Yeah.
And I skipped past him in the first half and ended up one-on-one with a goalkeeper and hit it. It was probably still Kasper Schmeichel then, I don't know. I hit it straight at him and he saved it, and it went out for a corner. And I thought, that's my chance gone. Leicester.
Was that at 0-0 as well, or?
I think we might have been 1-0 up.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. But I definitely remember that's my chance gone to ever score against Leicester.
Yeah.
Because I probably should have scored, in fairness.
And Robbie got a hat trick that night, I think, didn't he? He had a habit of scoring against Leicester and Derby, didn't he? When he
so he was. Well, that popped up the other day. Was it 10 years since he scored against them at Pride Park?
Yeah.
That popped up on some social media, because my amazing assist to him, that was a header of all of 2 yards. But we claim them, don't we?
No, absolutely. And then leaving Forest, there's a few clubs I've had to write them down. But Bristol City, you left Forest City?
Yeah, and again, I really wanted to stay at Forest, but with the passing of Nigel, and we didn't know who was going to take over the club at the time. I think the club was under due diligence at the time when, is it Fawaz who took over?
Yeah.
So if you actually look at that season, how many players left on a free contract, there was about 10 of us. And I was only 23. So I was in the Bosman ruling. Yeah. So if Forest would have offered me a contract of the same money that I was on, I wouldn't have been able to leave on a free. Yeah. So I could have spoke to another club, but they would have had to pay compensation for me. But Forest, because they were in due diligence and they didn't have an owner, they couldn't offer me a contract. So even though I was wanting to stay at the club, I ended up going out, and I had several options. In all honesty, I had quite a lot of option. And then when Fawaz then took over, and then Sean O'Driscoll got put in as manager, I'd obviously worked under Sean the season before. I had a conversation with Sean, and if I'm honest, it's probably a big mistake of mine. I had a conversation with Sean, and they asked me how much I wanted, and I set a ridiculous figure because I knew this new owner had come in with massive amounts of money. And to be honest, I'd been successful. I thought, why not? I'll try it a little bit and hope that I get something. I know I've got several other options to fall back on. Yeah. And it's a regret of mine, because it was probably a young lad at 23 trying to be a little bit greedy. Yeah.
But like we started this interview talking about, at the end of the day, it's a short career, isn't it? And and you've got to make the most of it, haven't you?
And look, when I say I was asking for ridiculous money, it's by no means ridiculous of what people get paid in the Championship. No means at all. It's probably an average wage now in the Championship. But I believed that I could earn that money because of what we'd done over the past couple of seasons, and I still think at that point I was probably regarded as one of the top young players outside the Premier League. I believed that I deserved that, and again I chanced my arm because a new owner had come in who apparently had loads of money.
Well, like you say, hindsight. And then, am I right in thinking? And again, forgive me if this is wrong, because this is Wikipedia, but you made your debut for Bristol City against Forest.
I did, off the bench, yeah. I actually got a really good, whatchamacallit, from
reception at the City Ground.
Because it was the first game of the season. I couldn't believe it because I'd only signed for Bristol City in, I think it was the 1st of August or something. So I was like a week or 2 or 10 days or something before the season actually started. So I was on the bench and I actually got a really good reception when I came on, which was really nice because you always worry. Saying that, when I captained Mansfield coming out against Forest, I got booed by the Forest lot.
Did you?
But you expect it. And I know I'd like to think the Forest fans keep me in relatively high regard. I don't think I ever did anything to let the club down.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've spoken to a few people and said I was doing this tonight, and they're all looking forward to seeing you and hearing from you. So absolutely. I think like I said when I did the introduction, you played almost every game in those 2 seasons when it's probably the best recent memories that we've got from that first time under Billy. So just I'm conscious that times passing. I'm really enjoying this call.
Sorry, I
you all night, but no, absolutely. But there are a couple of things I just wanted to finish off on. One is that we won't go into all the other. There's 3 things. So Owen, the manager of the South Bank, is a massive Bradford fan, and I know that you spent one season at Bradford. What was it like at Bradford?
Well, it was again. That was my headspace was probably not in the right place. So I'd had 2 years at Ipswich, and my last year at Ipswich, we'd got in the playoffs again, and I'd scored in the playoff semi-finals against Norwich the year before. So that was in the Championship. So when I left Ipswich, my belief was that I would still be in the Championship, considering I'd played 7 years in there and I'd actually had a really good season at Ipswich from a stats point of view, with assists and then obviously scoring in the playoff semi-final. So I thought I was going to be there, and then when nothing really came about from the Championship, it was a real shock to me, if I'm honest. And again, no disrespect to Bradford City at the time, they were League One, and that was not where my aspirations were. And I think there was probably an element of me that was a little bit disappointed to have to take that drop down a level when I'd done what I'd done in the Championship for 7 years, having 3 playoffs in there. I think I'm surely good enough to stay at this level, and I went, and we'd have been clear favourites to go up, I think, and I broke my leg after 4 weeks, I think. So I signed and broke my leg, so pretty much missed the season.
Right.
So I think I only played 11 games for Bradford in that year, which actually is quite good considering I broke my leg. But it was obviously
not the best time.
A bit of a wipeout season for me, and again, wrong place, wrong time. Phil Parkinson ended up leaving that year, and the owner sold the club, and the new owners came in, and they were like saying, well, this lad hasn't played, why hasn't he played? We want him gone. So that's why I was only there for that season. So
okay, and then just another couple of little quick bits. One is obviously football is not as we know it right now, playing behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I have the privilege of being at the City Ground for all the games, but it's not the same. And I just wanted to ask you what it was like playing at Wembley in the playoff final. I mean, obviously a great time to come on with the team 3-0 up at the time against Leicester, but what's it like playing without supporters?
Well, I said that it's going to be typical for me because I'd had the 3 playoffs, so 2 with Forest, 1 with Ipswich in a championship, lost in the semi-final every time. I then had the playoff at Bradford, my first year that I was there. We lost in the semi-final. So I'd had 4 playoffs and never got to the final. And all it's been for my career, the pinnacle to play at Wembley was pretty much the final dream of mine to do. Yeah. And then obviously we go to Northampton last year, and it's just typical that it's that one year that there's going to be no one there.
Stadium's empty.
We get there, and obviously fortunate enough to get on the pitch and say that I've actually played at Wembley, albeit 5-10 minutes, whatever it was. But amazing experience for me. And yeah, like you say, without the fans, a little bit strange, because it's a 90,000 seater, which I've never played in before. And it was just echoey, and all you could sort of hear was just like an electric buzz around the stadium. So obviously the scoreboards, the lighting, everything else that was going on, all the machinery that I'm assuming that are on around Wembley, you could just hear like a buzz of electricity.
Yeah, the advertising boards or whatever,
Yeah, everything. And that was literally it. And then obviously the odd word here and there. But I couldn't ask for a better experience playing at Wembley.
One for the grandkids, isn't it? Definitely.
Winning 4-0. And from a flip side of it as well, to win it and then actually appreciate Wembley, whereas I'm sure a lot of players who have won it probably have to run off and go in, and you're probably going in and you're celebrating with your drinks and whatever else you do, and you'd be off because you'd be going and celebrating and going out somewhere, wherever it would be. For us, we'd have probably been going out in Northampton to celebrate with all the fans and everything. Well, actually, because we were in a lockdown, we couldn't go and celebrate anywhere. So we actually just stayed on the pitch for a good hour after the game, FaceTiming family, taking pictures, and we probably got to enjoy it in a way that not many people ever will be able to.
In a weird, different
in a weird way. Look, don't get me wrong, there would have been nothing better than to do it in front of the fans, with the fans, and go and celebrate with the fans out on the town and have a few beers and stuff and celebrate it that way afterwards. There'd be nothing better. But when I come to the end of my career and it's done, and I can look back and I can say, well, actually I took in Wembley from a complete different point of view. It's quite a nice thing to have done.
Sounds good. And just to finish off, Paul, like I said before, it's an absolute pleasure. Just to finish off, what's Paul Anderson now? What are you doing with yourself these days?
Oh, I'm heading up homeschooling at the minute.
Oh, good luck with that.
No, it's not fun.
How old are they? How old are your two?
Oh, so we've got 4 and 2, or 4.5, 2.5. So he's in his first year, so it's early years. But still, he's still homeschooling on calls every single day. So I'm doing that, and look, it's tough. I take my hat off to teachers. Got so much respect for them. But I'm doing that. I'm keeping myself fit. I'm still hoping to get a team. Again, with COVID and everything, look, I have to take the positives away from it, that I'm healthy. I've got a beautiful family that are very supportive of me. And realistically, I'm probably in a much better place than what a lot of people are at this moment in time.
Absolutely.
With the way the world is. So
tough time for many people.
I have to look at it from a positive point of view, but from the negative point of view, COVID obviously has affected me getting a team at this moment in time. I'm still training hard, doing everything for myself, and hoping something comes up. And I've had a couple of offers from overseas, but just hasn't worked for my family for one reason or another, and we're still going down different avenues trying to keep my career going, because I'm only 32 and I'm as fit as a fiddle, and I've got so much left to offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm doing my coaching badges to go into that, but again, COVID stops me from coaching anywhere.
Difficult time, absolutely.
So it's difficult times, but again, I have to look at it and go, do you know what? I'm extremely fortunate. I can afford to have a roof over my head and pay for food for myself and my family, and I have to just keep thinking that I'm actually more fortunate than most at this moment in time.
Absolutely. Good man. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me and to talk to us tonight on SBC TV, and hopefully all of our viewers will enjoy watching and listening what you've had to say. Thanks very much, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Bye.